The contemplative meditation today is from The Thunder of Silence by Joel Goldsmith. Isn't that quite a nice name? The Thunder of Silence. So I'll read this selection and then we'll have a quiet meditation, a silent meditation, and then Jackson will start us into the service. One thing alone will demonstrate our teaching: realizing what the principles are and then taking them into your heart and mind and soul and body, living with them, moving and having your being in them, with them, and through them, until they become demonstrable principles within you. Then you become the light of the world.
Softly and tenderly, Spirit is calling, calling for you and for me. See, on the portals a new day is dawning, dawning for you and for me. Come home, come home. You who are seeking, come home. Lovingly, tenderly, Spirit is calling, calling, beloved, come home.
Yes, we have come here because we are called to come here with a welcoming spirit, an open mind, and a pure heart. We're going to join in this celebration today, each one for another, and each one following his or her own journey, knowing that everything that is presented or everything that is experienced here is meant to be part of our lives, is meant to be an encouragement for our own journeys. And I know that it will be perfect in that way. And so it is.
Come home, come home. You who are seeking, come home. Lovingly, tenderly, Spirit is calling, calling, beloved, come home.
How perfect. Now we move to the next perfect part of the celebration. Welcoming Angelica.
Claudia, thank you, Jackson. That was very good. So this morning, our talk title is Prove It. And, you know, I really like this whole idea about proving this teaching. In fact, Dr. Holmes says, one of the greatest difficulties in the new order of thought is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. As a matter of fact, we only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. That which we cannot prove may or may not be true, but that which we can prove certainly must be and is the truth. Too much theory and too little practice. To me, that is, I see that a lot. Not necessarily in our community, but definitely in the New Thought world. A lot of people have a lot of theory, but it doesn't show up in their lives. And then he goes on, Dr. Holmes also goes on to say, of course, the theory of any scientific principle goes beyond its application. At any given stage of the unfoldment of that principle and the evolution of its accomplishments. If this were not true, there would be no progress in any science. The sciences are objectively real to us only insofar as we can demonstrate them. And until demonstrated, they are suppositional, so far as practical results are concerned. If there is any field of research where the practical application is necessary, it is in the metaphysical field. The reason being that the principle of metaphysics seems less tangible to the average person than does the principle of other sciences. You know, quite often when I've shared what we believe with people that aren't familiar with it, they say, oh, that's like magical thinking. And you know, I've said before, I like the word magical, but it's not magical thinking. It is definitely a mental science. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Dr. Holmes says he entitled his work, the book that we now use for classes, etc., The Science of Mind. And he named the teaching religious science. And so the Oxford Dictionary defines science as the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. I highlighted two parts of this definition because I thought they were important. The intellectual and practical activity. And so what is that? The intellectual activity, of course, is how we're using our mind. And then the practical activity is what shows up, and what we do with it. Practical activity could also be something in training our mind, like spiritual mind treatment or affirmations or studying this teaching, etc. And then that observation and experiment, this is the fun part to me, to look at what I am treating for and watch it come into fruition. And for me, as I'm observing what's going on in the outer world, because I really believe that the outer world comes from our inner world, just like the holodeck on Star Trek, where you put in a program and then you step into this arena where it seems like everything is real, but the truth is everything is happening up here. Well, it's happening in the whole body, because I believe the mind is in the whole body. But the observation, to start observing. We used to say something like, what's in your consciousness? But that's kind of rude. However, we do need to ask ourselves, when we're not happy with our lives, what is in our consciousness? What is it that we're believing and feeling? Because belief and feeling come together to strike the spark of creation. And then experiment with it. Well, what if I felt this way? Or what if I allowed myself to think this instead of that? So to me, this teaching can be quite fun. And what happens is we create a hypothesis, and our hypothesis is change your thinking, change your life. That's the axiom of our philosophy. It's a basic assumption of our science that informs our concept of the creative process and our methodology. So what does this change your thinking really mean? I've had so many experiences in my life where I thought it was impossible to change the way I was thinking. And then because I went to a practitioner or because I started studying more, whatever, I learned more about what this change your thinking really means. So perhaps it means changing not only what we think about, but the way we think about it. So let's use prosperity, for instance. So you might go into a store, or you might be treating or affirming or knowing that you're a prosperous being living in a prosperous world. And you go into a store and you see something, or you're online since we can't go into the stores now, and you see something that you really like, and then you look at the price and you go, ooh, I can't afford that. That is an immediate reaction according to your, that's a feeling reaction and according to what you're believing about what you can or cannot do. So that changing the way you think is really important here. And I don't mean, change the way you think by buying the thing when you don't have the money, but changing the way you think by observing, like a scientist, how you're thinking, what you're feeling when you think that, etc. So perhaps in order to really change our lives, more than just our thinking, we have to change our beliefs and our behaviors. The thing that comes up for me, the memory that comes up for me in a line with this idea is as a little girl, I never wore slacks or jeans or anything like that. I wore shorts in gym class, and I wore riding gear for riding horses. And, what I wore went with what I was doing, but just to wear jeans for the fun of it was not allowed. I can hear my father so clearly. In fact, one time I'm out of the house, I had run away, been through the foster system, etc. I'm living in Hollywood, California, during the hippie days, having great fun. And I'm always wearing skirts. Granted, they were floaty skirts by then and, looked more hippie-ish. But so my girlfriend wanted to buy some jeans. So we went to this store, and she pulls out a pair and she goes, oh, these will look really good on you. Why don't you try them on? And I immediately, it was like, stood back. It's like, ladies don't wear pants. That's what my dad used to say all the time. Ladies do not wear pants. And even while I'm trying them on in the dressing room, I'm feeling really uncomfortable because I could hear my dad's voice in the back of my head saying that ladies don't wear pants. And even though I was being a hippie or a flower child at the time, there was still part of me that was entrenched in this idea that ladies didn't wear pants. So I had to change my belief and my behavior. In fact, I bought those jeans that I tried on because they did look good on me. And then it was really hard to get me out of them. So, and my wardrobe now, one of the things I loved about living on the Big Island and living here is that, jeans and a sweatshirt or sweaters is sort of the uniform of the day, right? Though I still like my skirts and my dresses. So perhaps our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors arise from our experiences, and what we think and believe and how we behave also influences our experiences. So in that example that I just told you, my behavior was coming from something that had happened as a child that I latched onto and had to work at letting go of. And I know that all of us have had something like that in our lives, something that our parents taught us that became a built-in belief system that affected everything. Our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings influence our experiences. So change your thinking and change your life. I used this slide last week, but it is so important. I got this at a deep level when I was living in Hawaii. This thought, trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. This too is a Ernest Holmes statement. In Hawaii, I had this wonderful dog named Hobbs. And for a while for quite a few years, I had a boyfriend named Rick, who was an organic chemist. And every night when he'd come home, Hobbs would run up to him, be wagging his tail and everything, and, want to be petted. And Hobbs was sort of a Labrador skinny dog mix. He wasn't big like Labrador, but sort of acted like one. He would fall over, so that Rick could scratch his tummy, and Rick would scratch his tummy, and then Rick would start looking through his fur. And one day I said, "What on earth are you doing? What are you looking for?" And he says, "Well, fleas. All dogs have fleas." And I had to tell him that Hobbs did not have fleas, because he and I made an agreement that he would not have fleas, even though Hawaii is known for really bad fleas. I didn't want them. So over and over again, I'm watching Rick checking Hobbs for fleas. And one day I went to Reverend Helen Street, my teacher, and I said to her, "I'm afraid Hobbs is going to get fleas." And she's like, "What?" But I told her this story. And this is what she said to me: trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. And so I was able to let go of the fear that Rick's constant looking for fleas was going to find some. There's also that thing about what you're looking for, you'll find. Either what you fear will come upon you, etc. But trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. And I was the one that was going through practitioner and ministerial classes. So I had the trained thought. Hobbs never did get fleas, never once, even though they were looked for. So my next idea is that, and this is the fun part for me, is proving this teaching, proving it in our lives. So we formed a question and a hypothesis, and now comes the fun part. And the fun part is experimenting. And our life is our laboratory. You get to create whatever you want to create. You get to, some people could say, well, oh, if you're driving a Volkswagen, you can't create a Rolls Royce. Well, yes, you can. It's all about the belief. It's whatever you believe is what's going to appear in your life. Most of us, though, however, have the feeling that from a Volkswagen, you need to go to a Toyota, and from a Toyota, you need to go to something else, and from something else, you need to go to, you go step by step by step by step by step to get to that Rolls Royce. But the experimental part of life, I find to be quite interesting as well as fun. In fact, what I've asked in a lot of my beginning classes is that the students get a little notebook, sort of like this, and they write down the date and what they're treating for on a page. And then they do their treatment, of course, and they continue to do it as, not the same treatment every day, but the treatment to get deeper into how to move it forward or out into life. And every time they want to write it, anytime they want something, to write it down in their little book. And whoops. I hit the mouse when I put down the book. They write it down in their little book. And then then they go through the little book when things manifest in their lives, and they write down how it happened. So some of you in my classes have heard this before, but the story that comes across for me in my own life is that I decided to treat for flowers for Easter. And in my mind, I wanted them to come from a man. But all I wrote down in my little book was treatment for flowers for Easter. And then I waited to see what would happen. And of course, I'm constantly looking through my little book to see what I had treated for and what had come about, etc., and how had it come about. And Easter came, and I had an Easter brunch, and one of my friends brought 2 pots of mums for me and put them on either side of my fireplace. And I thought that was really nice. And we went on and had lunch and the whole thing. And a couple of days later, I'm reading through my little treatment book, and I see, oh, I wanted flowers for Easter. Oh, I didn't get them. And I look up, and then there's 2 big pots of mums right by my fireplace. And I thought, oh my God, I did get them. I just didn't get them in the way I wanted to get them, but I got them. And so this is part of the experimenting action that we have in our lives. So think about this. You're a scientist, and you want to create a new perfume. And you have all these little bottles full of stuff, and you have your little beakers and things to experiment with. And you take a little bit of this, and you take a little bit of that, and then you put the part in there that keeps those things together. And you smell it, and you go, that's okay, but it's not what I want. And so you try it again. You take a little bit, so, well, let's try some of this time. And then you try it, well, that's almost right. And so then you try it again, and you take a little bit more of different things, and you try it. Oh, yes, this is it. This is what you're doing in your mind. You're taking this little thought and that little thought and this feeling and this belief, and putting them all together and seeing what manifests. So our life is our laboratory. If there's something that you want or don't want, perhaps you might try this experience of having a little treatment notebook and writing down how it came about. Because then, like for me with the flowers for Easter, I realized, oh, I have to be more concise about what I want. I'd like to get flowers from a man for Easter instead of just flowers for Easter. And then if I still manifested just the flowers, then I'd have to look about what's my belief around this. So Dr. Holmes says, I have this in one of the beginning slides. One of the great difficulties in the new order of thought is we're likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. We read, we take classes, we do affirmations, perhaps we do treatments. I don't know. But I know that a lot of us spend more time in our minds than in the combination of our minds and hearts, which is what we need to demonstrate. And he says, as a matter of fact, we only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. That's one of the things I love about the science of mind. It's provable. It's not magical thinking. It's provable. So life is an experience that must be experienced. Our great experiment this year is to discover how to approach life with awe, wonder, curiosity, and inquisitiveness. And that will transform our experience of it. And when I think about this, I think, oh, the possibilities that we have are amazing. I mean, there is no limit to the possibilities in our life. We can change our thinking and change our life in any way we want. And so I invite you to do that this year, to really approach life with awe, wonder, curiosity, and inquisitiveness. I invite you to create a little log like a scientist would, and see how it is that things are coming about into your life. And you know, it can be done for treatment and spiritual mind treatment, or affirmative prayers, we've been calling it lately, can be done for physical things. It can be done for feelings, how you want to feel. It can be done for health, wealth, relationships, everything about our life. Oh, the possibilities. Dr. Holmes said in his famous Sermon by the Sea in Asilomar, 1959, find me 1,000 people in the world who know what religious science is and use it and live it as it is, and I'll myself live to see a new world, a new heaven, and a new earth here. Now, I want to tell you that tomorrow begins the season for nonviolence that's been happening every year for quite a while now. I think since the 80s. I can't really remember the date. But I'm going to be posting something on my Facebook page about the 64 days, every day, an affirmation and something to do about it. And also, I mentioned, you'll see in the newsletter that comes out probably this afternoon, the February newsletter, that one of the practitioners up at the Seattle church wrote a 40-day program for moving away from racism. And she did 40 treatments. And so on our center's Facebook page, I'm going to be posting those. Now, I just talked to you about using this teaching and proving it in your life. And yet there is a greater life that's happening here that needs our teaching badly. It needs us to remember that, or to stop buying into the divisiveness and stop buying into the stupidity, excuse me, but that's what it feels like to me, of this against that, etc. There's a whole world that is aching for our conscious awareness that this too, this planet, is a sacred place and everything on it is sacred. We say all there is God. And so let's really pay attention this month and start using our teaching to create a world that works for everyone. That's part of our global vision, a world that works for everyone. And I know that it only takes a few people. It doesn't even take 1,000 like in this statement. It could take 2 people really knowing. It could take 1 person really knowing. But I'm inviting you to participate with me during the month of February, which is Black History Month, and also part of the season for nonviolence, to really do some work around these ideas so that we can live in a new world, a new heaven, and a new earth here. Take a breath. Let's say this affirmation together. My body, mind, and spirit all work together to create the perfect, exact experience far beyond anything I can imagine. I am perfection in human form. I am so grateful for my health, prosperity, and creativity that all allow me to do what I wish as I want. And let's go into prayer. I recognize that we live in an infinite field of creative potentiality, and that each one of us will get out of this infinite field what we put into it, what we declare, what we intend. I know that this infinite field of creative potentiality is part of this one great everythingness, that calling it by any name limits it because of what we believe about that name. So I think of it as divine energy, or as Ernest Holmes said in one of the books that we were reading for practice 2, was eternal energy. And how grateful I am to know that we can use this eternal energy to create a better world, not only for ourselves, but for every single living thing. And the first place we do it is recognizing that every single living thing is the divine. There is nothing that is not divine. Even those that we feel something against, they're divine. And not only is every single thing divine, but every single thing is creating its own world. And so right now, I choose to speak this word to know that each one of us is participating in making this a world or worlds that work for everyone. I know we do this by letting go of any belief systems that are hampering us or holding us back. We're letting go of any feelings of resentment or judgment. We're letting go of all the pain that we've been carrying around. And we're declaring, feeling fully assured by this teaching, we're declaring that we live in a world that is filled with love and compassion, kindness. As the Dalai Lama once said, kindness is my religion. And so I know that that's what each one of us know for ourselves as well, that kindness and compassion are part of the way we live in the world. And that we know for everything that there is a good there. And we know that because all the divine is really about a greater good. And the main way we do all of this is by recognizing that there is only one life. That life is God's life, or divine life, or whatever you want to call it. And that life is the life that we are living right now. How grateful I am to be on this spiritual journey with all of us. How grateful I am to know that each one of us is a light bearer in our own way. How grateful I am to know that in our heart of hearts, we know that love is the greatest healing agent in the universe. And so we love regardless of appearances. And so with a grateful heart, I release these words into divine law, knowing that they are already so, and so it is. So we have a gift of music this morning with Anna Hamilton. So let me get that set up here.
is but a song we sing. Fear is the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, and you may not know why. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try and love one another right now. Some may come and some may go, yet we'll surely pass. When the winds that left us here return for us at last, we are but a moment's sunlight fading in the grass. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try and love one another right now. If you hear the song I sing, you will understand. Listen, you hold the key to love and fear, all in your trembling hand. Just one key unlocks them both. It's at your command. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now, right now, right now.
Yay, Anna, thank you so much.